to another episode of Fire, Flour, and Fur. I find it kind of funny that our fur has decided to be quiet right now because, I don't know, that's one of our little fur babies coming in. Tonight we are going to make an Italian pound cake. We have made mention a lot of times that the way my husband and I grew up, we learned to give with food. And we have a friend coming over tomorrow to do some stuff for us. So we're going to make a pound cake and put it in a Bundt cake. And we'll have something to give them when they come over. So we've done a little bit of prep work. Not a whole bunch yet, but a hair bit. So we have preheated the oven to 300 and it cooks for 60 to 70 minutes. My husband was like, holy cow. And I said, yeah. But if it's low bake and it cooks longer, then it's going to have more of a chance to rise. It's got quite a bit of baking powder in it. So
I guess dinner's going to be late.
Well, yeah, it's 6:30. It's going to be a few minutes. Sorry, babe.
All right, I'll just have a sugar packet.
Poor thing. He thinks he's picked on. All right. So the first thing what we are supposed to do is put flour, baking powder, and salt into a bowl and set it to the side. So this recipe calls for 3 cups of flour, a teaspoon of baking powder, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. People always think you're doing baked goods, gross salt, but it does balance out the sugar. So a 1/4 teaspoon isn't very much. You're getting the rest of the salt, I think, with the lemon. After you have done that, in another bowl, you are supposed to cream your butter and your sugar together. Now, I am going to be using a paddle. For the longest time, I thought everything that you're supposed to do is whip, use the whisk, and the paddle for cake, that's the key. So this calls for a cup of butter. It's baking. You're going to use butter. That's just what you do. Julia Childs loves butter. You need butter, right? So a pound of butter equaling 2 cubes. And then this one calls for 2 cups of sugar. So I'm going to put the butter in, put the paddle on, my handy dandy KitchenAid that I love. I'm going to beat it just a little bit. And then I am going to slowly add my sugar. Now, sometimes when I tell you guys something, it's because I've screwed up a lot, a whole bunch. When it says cream your butter and sugar, I honestly cream your butter and sugar. You're incorporating the butter and sugar together, and there have been a number of times that I've been in a rush because somebody wants their dinner and haven't incorporated or creamed my butter and sugar enough, and it makes a world of difference. Okay, you can look at that and think, okay, well, it's mixed together. Not creamed together enough. Okay, it's incorporated. True, it's incorporated. But when you say creamed, everything is going to be blended. Your sugars actually kind of melt. Remember, we're not trained chefs. We know what we're talking about. I don't know the right words. So we're going to let this go for a little while. And hopefully not have anything fly out. Okay, getting there, looking better. Still not done. Still not done.
Hey, is your butter softened or is it hard?
It's been sitting out on the counter for 20 minutes to half an hour. There's some tricks to that. Let me walk away from this. There's a couple of ways that you can speed up the melting process or the softening process. Obviously, you can use the microwave, but that really, really, really just melts it, and that's not good for your butter. The very best thing to do is to leave it out on the counter. But if you're in a hurry, you can get a mug. I can't reach a mug. I have bad shoulders. Okay, so you can get one of those mugs. Yep. Fill it with water, put it in the microwave for a couple of minutes, dump out the water so your glass is super hot, and then you can take a stick of butter and put that over the top of it, and it will soften your butter really fast. That's 100 times better than microwave. All right. Thanks for the question, babe, because look, our butter, see how pretty that is? It is white. It is creamy. The sugars have blended in. They always want to scrape the bowl. It's funny how many times you watch or read a recipe and they talk about scraping the bowl and you're like, whatever, I'm not going to bother. And then you pull out your cake and there are spots where things didn't rise correctly, or there's too much butter, or it does weird things. Scrape your bowl, folks. Scrape your bowl. All right, so we have incorporated your butter and your sugar. Perfect. So now what you're supposed to do is beat in eggs one at a time. So I am going to turn my mixer on slow because, of course, my butter and my sugar have incorporated really well. And I am going to knock eggs in one at a time. If you are brave, you can go ahead and crack your eggs and put them inside. Depends on the day. Some days, I'm not quite so brave and I end up with shells. And so I will crack my eggs into a bowl first. If you are using farm fresh eggs, not from the grocery store, I would highly suggest you crack them into a bowl one at a time first, because every once in a while you get a spot that you don't really want to put in a cake, and when it's going into the cake, it's too late at that point. So those are just grocery store, good old grocery store eggs. And even at the grocery store, every once in a while you'll get a bad egg, but for the most part they do a really good job, so I don't really worry about it. All right. So our eggs have been beaten in. If you look at the difference in the sugar and the butter on the spatula from before and the butter now, you can see that it's much more yellow. That, of course, is because of the yolk. I know that some people are super concerned with yolk and the health of a cake. At one point, we might do a healthy cake, but today we're doing a pound cake. It's going to have butter. It's not going to be super, super lightweight. Sorry, folks. That's the way it is. All right, the next thing that we're putting in is half a cup of sour cream. I am so excited about this recipe because it's crazy what sour cream does to a cake. People, again, you hear about ingredients and go, ooh, sour cream in a cake. But it ends an interesting, it actually moistens the cake, and the combination of the sour cream and the lemon is going to make it tart without being super sour. I am putting sour cream into my cup, and I'm making sure that I'm poking it a little bit to make sure that I am getting all the holes out so there's not some weird random bubble stuffed in the bottom of that, and we are mismeasuring. So here we go again with sour cream. And I'm glad that this side is turned away from you guys because I'm making a little bit of a mess. Oh well, it is what it is. It's baking, right? Okay. And there is our sour cream. So I'm going to let this sit and blend for a few minutes, and then we will work on the next step. Okay, so we have our butter, our sugar, our sour cream, and our eggs mixed into there. We are now going to add lemon zest, vanilla. Oh, what else? Wow. Okay, lemon juice, vanilla, and lemon zest. Okay, here is another weird little tidbit that might help. My lemons are a little bit hard and they're cold. They're out of the fridge. I just got them at the grocery store. You do not want to microwave these for very long, but I am going to microwave them for about 10 to 15 seconds. What that does is it softens the skins because we're using the zest, and there's some of our fur, and it releases some of the juices. And then the other thing that you want to do is you want to take your lemons and roll them on the counter. A little bit of pressure, because again, see, that's glorious. I wish you were here to smell it because that is the key. Okay, so we've got nice soft lemons. The recipe calls for the zest of 2 lemons, about 2 tablespoons, and 4 tablespoons of lemon juice. So I am going to zest first. This is a nice little grater. I think we just bought it at the grocery store, didn't we, babe?
I think so.
Nothing super special about it, but it's a very fine grate, and all you're doing is taking the top layer of your lemons off. Oh, I probably should have mentioned that before I put them in the microwave, I washed them. Because, again, I think the grocery store does a great job taking care of us, but I am also not going to trust the grocery store for my health. So I went ahead and washed those off really good, and then I set them in the microwave waiting for us to do this recording. So I'm not going super deep. I am just taking that dark yellow off. If you get a little bit of the white yellow, that pulp, that's fine. But I'm not getting super aggressive and going all the way down into the fruit. I'm just taking the peel off. And this is another one that when I first started cooking, and I was like, you want me to eat what? And I thought it was disgusting, and it makes all the difference. The other day, I can't even remember what I was making, but it was some lemon something or other, and it called for fresh lemon and lemon zest, and guess what? We live in a small little town, and I think I was cooking on a Sunday, and our grocery store isn't open on Sunday, so we had lemon juice in the fridge, and it was fine, but it's certainly not as flavorful and pretty and zingy, maybe? I don't know. What's the right word? Oh, zesty. Well, that would make sense since I'm zesting. Anyway, it wasn't as good. It tasted fine, but it just certainly wasn't as good. This is my problem, is I get in the mood to bake, and I don't always have what I need at the house. There's our zest. We are going to... sorry, I thought I was prepared. Not as prepared as I thought I was. I'm going to cut these in half. And here's a shout out to Pampered Chef, even though they don't need my help. Here's our fabulous little It works so good. And then you are not trying to squeeze on your own. I can't remember how much I paid for this, but it was worth every penny. I do believe this was when Bert was in the middle of his, I'm going to put lime in my, what were you making? Shaking them in. You bought the shakers and we're making drinks.
Oh, whiskey sour.
Whiskey sours. So I didn't have one of these things previous to that. So I can be thankful that Bert got this weird whiskey sour thing and then moved on, because now I have a really cool lemon thing.
Yeah, that reminds me, we're out of whiskey.
All right, after we get this stuff mixed in, we are going to mix in flour and buttermilk. So the recipe says 3 cups of flour and how much buttermilk? A half a cup of buttermilk. And what they have you do is back and forth. So we start with flour, add buttermilk, put a little bit more flour in, a little bit more buttermilk, and then you end with the flour. Oh, I forgot. Oh, I forgot vanilla. Okay, I am going to be completely honest here, folk. I love vanilla. I am a vanilla whore. I probably have 6 or 8 different types of vanilla in my pantry, and it depends on what I'm making, what I decide to use. This is Mexican vanilla, straight from Felisa de Ciudad de Mexico. It was made in Mexico, and it is glorious. It smells so good. Mexican vanilla is what, earthier?
Yeah. The bourbon vanilla's got more of a tang to it. That's more of a, best way to say it'd be a natural taste.
Yeah. Okay. My mother was an amazing cook, is an amazing cook. She really honestly is. She raised 6 kids on my dad's teacher salary. So she found a lot of different ways to save money. And she was the person that would go buy imitation vanilla at the grocery store. So the bottle would cost her $1. Please don't be that person. Vanilla makes a world of difference. Now, this recipe calls for a teaspoon of vanilla. I am a vanilla whore. I'm putting in a tablespoon. That just makes me happy right there. All right, lemon and lemon zest. Now, we've got to do this fairly quickly. Okay, here's a little science lesson. We are adding lemon to butter, which will curdle, but we are also adding baking powder. The lemon and the baking powder react with each other, and that's what's going to give us the rise. Okay, if you look, guys, you can actually see the curdle kind of happen. We're looking for that reaction. Now, you don't want to sit around here for very long messing with it, because it will curdle. That's not necessarily a good thing, but we want the reaction, because then when we add the baking powder, then we're going to get a rise to our cake. All right, so we are going to do a back and forth. We're going to start with flour. We are going to then put in part of our buttermilk, which is also going to help with the reaction. Then we're going to go back to butter, and then we end with flour. Sorry, when I said butter, I meant buttermilk. I have a love-hate relationship with my KitchenAid, because it likes to spit flour and sugar back out at me. So
You're not much of a spitter.
my husband thinks he's hilarious. Okay. So I am going to put some more flour in, and we are reserving the end of it for the last mix. The nice thing about that, and this is a little bit hard to explain, but the nice thing about that is if I don't feel like, because remember, I added a tablespoon of vanilla instead of a teaspoon. If I don't feel like my batter is the right consistency, I can always add more flour at the end. Okay, so that's the last of the buttermilk. Oh, this batter's looking so pretty. So pretty. Last of the flour. Now, my husband and I always joke around about a Bundt cake because of Big Fat Greek Wedding, right? It's a Bundt. What's a Bundt? It's a cake! And then they come out with a flower put in the middle, like a pot of flowers put in the middle of it. Around here, Bundt cake, you did it all the time. Oh, that's a pretty batter. Oh, that's a pretty batter. Okay, one last scraping on the sides. Look how pretty that batter is. That is gorgeous. It's going to be, when it comes out, it's going to be a really pretty light yellow cake. Look, oh my gosh, that is the prettiest batter. Okay, so I did one more scraping. I'm going to do a quick whip. And we are done. Now, I like the fact that this is obviously a hair bit more of a modern recipe because they actually, in the recipe, look how pretty that is, say that you can use cooking spray. When I was little, my mom used to always make me grease the dang pans, and she used Crisco shortening. Disgusting. I hate the feeling of that crap on my hands. So, cooking spray, folk. Cooking spray. Okay, and here we go. Now, the scariest part of this, don't put batter down the hole. Okay, my husband will be the first to tell you, I am not the cleanest baker. Not the cleanest baker. It's a good thing I have a sous chef, huh, babe?
Yeah, whatever.
Now he'll clean the kitchen. I know he will. Because he loves me and he wants cake tonight.
I want dinner.
Not getting dinner, babe. You're getting cake. Okay. So we are going to put this all in the pan. It says 300 degrees for 60 to 70 minutes until, you know, the classic stick or the knife or whatever comes out clean. And then we're going to do just I don't know if I'm going to show it to you because glaze is kind of boring, but you're just going to do a basic white sugar and probably confectioner's sugar and a little bit of milk and some lemon for a glaze. Just keep it super light. And you are supposed to put that on when the cake is warm. So you tip the cake out, you let it sit for a second, and then you put your glaze on there while it's warm, and it seeps into your cake and drizzles down. So there you are, folk. We will see you on the flip side. All right, the cake cooked in the oven at 300 degrees for 65 minutes. It is a lovely color. Okay, so here's the scary part of this whole situation. Here is our lovely Bundt, and it needs to be on this plate, right? So we have to tip it. You have to be a little bit brave to do this. All right, so the idea here is that you turn your plate upside down and the cake is still hot. Like it came out 3 minutes ago, so it's still hot. So you have to turn the plate over, hold on to both the plate and the Bundt pan, flip it. I heard it fall, which means my spray worked really well. I'm still super excited that we didn't have to grease it and we just could use cooking spray. And then figure out a way to lift it. Woohoo! Okay, that's pretty. Right? That's a pitty pan. Came out of that pan perfect. And it's going to sit here and cool a little bit while I make the glaze. Now, this is not a frosting. I was looking at the wrong thing all the time. This is not a frosting, this is a glaze. A frosting is generally thicker, it's more opaque, and it sits on top of the cake, and so you put it on when it's cool. A glaze, you want it to seep into the cake and then be able to barely see it on the outside. So I am going to use a little bit of condensed milk, not sweetened condensed milk, just good old condensed milk, and confectioner's sugar. I could put a little vanilla in there, but I want the lemon to stand out, so I'm not going to worry about vanilla for this one.
So you're buying that as evaporated milk? Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Just the good old evaporated milk?
Yes, good old canned evaporated milk. It has a little bit different flavor, but I just like it because we don't drink a lot of milk at this house, and so I can just buy it in small amounts. Okay, so
It was really good on cornflakes with lots of sugar.
oh, we were never allowed good old milk at our house because, you know, again, teacher's salary and 6 kids. So my mom would get whole milk from the guy up the street, and we would actually take the cream off the top of it and drink that milk that way. Nowadays, it's a big deal to be able to get whole unpasteurized milk.
It's not unpasteurized, it's just they haven't separated the cream.
Well, it's a big deal around here now,
Yeah.
but back then it was just an everyday thing. Okay, so you can see that this is just a very, very liquidy glaze. It's not a frosting, it's a glaze. And you want to whisk it, and so all of the powdered sugar is incorporated, so you don't have lumps. Again, if you have more lemon and you want to put a little bit more lemon and zest in, you could. I don't know that I would put lemon in this. I might put zest in it, but I only bought 2 lemons, so, you know, it's fine. No big deal. Okay. Now the idea, I think I'm going to use a spoon. We just moved into this house. We're still figuring out where I put stuff. Mind you, I'm the one that puts stuff away, and I'm still like, I don't know where I put that. I don't know. All right. So you want it to taste good, and you want it to be pretty. So I am going to take the glaze, and I am going to run it around so it drizzles and it soaks in. Remember, guys, you eat with your eyes first. So you want it to be pretty. I am not one of those bakers that presents super well. I have so much respect for people that make everything so pretty. I don't know why. I'm not going to say I don't have the time. And I really, honestly, I would love to learn how to decorate and stuff like that. I just have never sat down and tried. My sister does really pretty decorating, and I watch her and I'm fascinated, and I don't try. So this is kind of the, I don't know, messy look. And then I think this is probably enough. Some people would probably want a little bit more. And what you could do is, this is sitting pretty good, but I'm not going to really know what it's going to do until it sits a little bit. If it's super, super, super hot, the cake, when you pull it, when you start putting it on, of course it's going to seep in a lot more. This looks like it's going to sit on top fairly good, but in half an hour or so, if I decide that I want some more sitting on top, then I could mix up a little bit more glaze, and put a little bit more on top. But I think, personally, this is going to look pretty. So there it is. You can see it dripped in the center. It's dripped around the edges. It is puddling along here, and it's puddling inside. So the bottom of the cake will absorb some of the flavor. And I probably shouldn't, but I'm going to anyway. I'm cutting into this bad boy. Come here, babe. You haven't eaten dinner yet, but you can have some cake. Come on. I like the Bundt because the way of the shape of it, it kind of naturally shows you where you can cut. So we are having a Leon-sized piece of Bundt cake. My dad, whose name was Leon, was a sugar fiend, and anytime we ate anything, he would have a big piece and then a second piece. So we always joke around and say we're having a Leon-sized piece of cake. You can see it cut really well. It looks really consistent. It's a little crispy on the outside, moist on the end. It's got a good lemon flavor.
Really good. Thank God you used the zest.
Right. And I think that's the key. It would have been okay with bottled lemon, but the price of a lemon, it's worth it. So there you go, folks. This one's called Italian pound cake, and we put it in a Bundt pan. And hopefully there'll still be some cake left when Rick comes tomorrow. Thanks for another fun episode of Fire, Flour, and Fur. Our fur kids are all asleep here on the floor with us. My husband's still waiting for dinner. It's in the oven, but all he's getting is frozen pizza. Sorry, babe. Have a good one. See you next time.